It's time for Winedown with your host, Missy, and the Winedown Wednesday crew. Join us tonight as we discuss topics that affect families on a daily basis. So grab your glass, your cup, or even your blanket. Settle in on the couch and join us in the room as we go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hola, family, and welcome back to another live edition of Winedown Wednesday. I am your host, Missy, and I welcome each and every one of you into the room tonight. As always, I will introduce our special guest in just a moment, but I want to always introduce my co-hosts in this process, in this journey of motherhood. So tonight, joining us in the room, we have Angie, we have Rachel. I see Kendra's come in the room, and we have a couple others that will pop in as they come live into the room to join us in our conversation. A couple rules to remember. There is no hate speech here. We can agree to disagree. What happens at 1803 might not be what happens at your house. So these are just suggestions, and we are in no way, shape, or form trying to advise you against any professional opinions that you may have had, pediatrician, therapist, anything. This is just a conversation to get your mind moving in the right direction and open to some new ideas and maybe things that you haven't thought about in this motherhood journey. So again, sit back. I hope that you have something to drink tonight. My drink of choice is hot chamomile tea and water, and we're going to get this conversation started. If at any point you would like to join us in the room, if you make that known in the chat, then one of my co-hosts will let you in the room so that you can be a part of this conversation, because sometimes we don't just want you watching. We want you to be a part of the conversation, and maybe you have a suggestion that we haven't thought about, and we welcome those conversations into the room. So again, if you let us know, and they can respond, and we can get your email address and get you into the room. So again, thank you so much for joining us. I think it's in this series, the education of our children, we've gotten some really good ideas for our children, but I think what I'm realizing is that education that we have received during this journey, we have gotten some really, really, really good speakers to join us in the room. The conversation has been amazing. The suggestions have been wonderful. For those of you that missed it, you can go back to our YouTube channel and catch up on some of the past conversations. This is a 6-week series, and so I don't know, Angie always got to tell me, I don't know if this is week 4 or 5, but I think we have at least one more session. So I'm just enjoying it, right? It's just been such rich conversation, and I'm so appreciative. Tonight, joining us in the room, we have a very special guest, Ms. Pam. And for those of you that don't know, Pam is Kendra's mom, which makes it even more special for me. We had an awesome conversation a little while ago, and yes, Kendra, I love your mom. I think we're all going to end up adopting her.
You have an amazing daughter.
Yes, I told her we love Kendra. Kendra busted up in here like she's been in here for 3 years, and Kendra been in here for like 3 months, but we love her. So, she's our no holds barred, person that's gonna come in the room and tell us when we all wrong and when we all right, and we love her for it. So again, we are excited about Ms. Pam. The guests that we've had, y'all, the bios read like manuals, right? So I try to pull out little bits and pieces so to let you know why they were invited into the room and what they're bringing into the room. So like everybody else, I'm going to introduce just a short snippet, a couple of things about Ms. Pam, which was already made her great because she was Kendra's mom. But Ms. Pam has a Master's of Education in Guidance and Counseling. We love that because we need that tonight. She has a Bachelor's in Elementary Education. She has a lot of experience working with children with exceptionalities, and so that's kind of in the vein of what we're going to be talking about tonight, those children and determining whether or not your child needs more help along the way. She's been the supervisor of instruction. Like her whole life for the last 40 years has been about education, right? And so I'm glad that we had the opportunity to talk today. She's done most of her years in Virginia, but she's done the last several years before her retirement in PG County, which is where most of our moms and most of our viewership comes from. So I think that's important to say, because y'all know state lines do things differently. And what we're finding out after our conversation Tuesday, county lines do stuff differently, even though they say it's a Maryland system. Not all counties are created equal. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that, but that last 9 years. And I think after tonight, because I think this is going to be one of the conversations where we could go and go and go. I've already invited Ms. Pam to come back and join us on a Tuesday for our regular group chat, because I feel like the information is going to be so much that it's going to need to spill over. For those of you that want follow-up, we always make sure that we get information as you send questions if we're not on the live, and we'll get them to her and make sure that the answers are published. So I want to give Ms. Pam just a minute or so to introduce herself, and then we're going to move right into our conversation.
Evening greetings to all of the listeners who are out there this evening, especially to those who I see on camera, but more importantly to those whom I do not see. Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome. Thank you for the beautiful introduction. I'm in my happy space now. So it's my pleasure and my honor to be with you all today and have the opportunity to share and interact with you. And hopefully when we leave this space this evening, we can all take something away that will help to brighten and broaden our horizons and possibly enrich our lives. So that's my goal for the evening. I will say this, sometimes when people tune into these things, they think of their hosts and speakers as being the experts. Nada. I am not an expert. I am a woman on a journey, and I'm a lifelong learner, and every part of my life is something new and exciting. I have a lot of experience, but I am by far not an expert. So please do not look to me to be the expert. Look to me as to be someone who's willing to listen and to help guide and to provide whatever experiences I've had in life that may help us to unlock what we need to unlock to move forward and be successful and happy. So thank you.
I made the mistake of telling her she would be the expert in the room tonight, and she quickly let me know, please don't refer to me as an expert. But you know, the woman of wisdom. So based on our conversation, I know we have something that kind of was presented to us Tuesday, and we'll kind of let that fall into the conversation. But Ms. Pam wanted to start it off a little different, and so I'm gonna let her go and take it. Go on.
Alrighty, so the topic for this evening, as I understand it, from Dr. Missy, is to be on the focus of barriers to education or obstacles to education. And before I get into that, while you're thinking about it, I'm going to give you a little task, and then I'm going to give you a little personal info about me, so maybe you can connect with me on some level. But my intro is going to be short, but here's your task. When talking with Dr. Missy, I found that part of the barriers that you all have discussed with regards to education actually stem from experiences you've had that have created some type of a fear that now is maybe causing you to put a wall up, and so therefore creating a barrier to education. And that being the case, what I will say to you is I want to know, with regards to education, what is the burning fear that you have? So I'll let you think about that. I'm going to give you some personal info, and then we're going to jump right in. But I'm going to come back and ask for some of you to share one fear, just one, not a story yet, just a fear. And we'll see how many of those actually get addressed in our conversation this evening, because that is what will frame what we talk about. Fears are interesting, and I'm going to pop glasses on and off because I'm at that age in my life where I have to do that. Fears are interesting. I find fears to actually be windows of opportunity. And I also find that fear is about the unknown, something that you're not familiar with. what I try to do is provide education and information and let that help us to manage a fear, whether it's my own personal fear or whether it's fears for other people. And because there are all kinds of ways to deal with it. Some of us fly away, run away. Some of us want to beat it up and combat it. Some of us just ignore it and sweep it under the rug. Personally, I prefer to try to manage it. And what I do tonight is going to helpfully share some of that with you as far as a skill set. Learning to manage those fears so they're no longer fears for you, but opportunities or become opportunities. A little about me. I'm a Virgo. I'm an August baby. I was born in Dayton. All right, for the Virgos. I was born in Dayton, Ohio. I call Newport News in Virginia home because I finished high school there. But home truly is where my heart is. I grew up as an Army brat. My dad was a colonel and a pilot in the Army. So I grew up all around. So wherever I land is where home is for me. I've had the opportunity to have a very, very full life. And I have some DC roots on my mother's side, for those of you that are from the DC area. I've been married, divorced, and remarried. So for those of you who've possibly gone those paths in life, we may have some similarities there. I have a lot of loves. Art and the performing arts. I'm a foodie. I love travel, reading, learning, home decorating, and anything that allows me to be near water is good for me. So I belong to different organizations. I am a Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated soror, for those of you that may have that affiliation. Been a member of Jack and Jill, raised my children as Jack and Jillers. Have participated and been a part of Links Incorporated and other community activities. So if any of those touch on you in any way, hopefully positive, good, because now we have something that we have in common and we can go forward. The last thing I have to say before I turn it over to you and find out what your fears in education are is when I was told the topic, I said, I immediately think of three things. One, that is a barrier to education is funding. Where's the money? You got to have the money, particularly about public education, because that's basically where my background is. And those are related to the taxes that you pay. And they're also related to a second barrier, real estate. I've heard maybe some conversation about that because the funding is related to your taxes, which is related to where you live. And it is about location, location, location. And lastly, a barrier that came to mind was curriculum. What are they teaching? What are the policies in public education? And that's about who has a seat at the table. And I challenge you to get a seat at the table and to do that through voting locally and regionally, state and nationally, because that's how we get our seats at the table. And with that, I'm now going to ask you, what is your fear? Your biggest fear and barrier to education?
Ladies.
What is it?
No, I'm saying ladies, let's come on, talk about it. We talk about it all day. Come on, don't be shy now. Y'all know how to talk.
And I'm ready to write it down. I actually have a box.
Say for me, it's being unprepared. As a first-time mom, I don't know what I don't know. And I don't have prior experience to know, like, okay, at this stage, you should be able to do this, and other family members, their kids are 14, 15, so they've been there, done that. They can't really give me sound advice other than my crew here. So that for me is my fear of like, okay, you're just moseying along, like waiting on your child to give you the cues. And then when they get into school, you find out, oh, wait, I missed all these other things that I should have been doing, right? Like what's the right books to buy and what's the, like all of those things. So I know that's a lot, but that's right. That's the thing.
Excellent. All right. And I will respond quickly and say, and you've heard it a million times, don't beat yourself up because each situation is uniquely different to each child that you raise. And therefore, there is no right and wrong book per se. I mean, there's some books that I wouldn't necessarily feel were probably the healthiest books to get, but that doesn't mean it's a wrong book because it may be better when they're older. So which book to pick and what to do because everybody else is raising their children. So it is overwhelming. Take it slow, one step at a time, and continue to research and learn, because what you all are doing today raising children, nothing like I raised mine. Ask Kendra. And she reminds me, yeah, we're not doing that now. Which is true. That life is an evolution. It evolves. And so does everything else, just like medicine and all other things in life. So to you, Rachel, I say, take your time, take it slow, and whatever you do is right for that moment. And if it's not right for that moment, you will learn what needs to be done differently. That's life. Yeah.
Jasmine, I saw you come on camera.
Okay, so I'm still, my 2-year-old still up, as you know, we've become accustomed to. But I was gonna say a fear of failure. Yeah, kind of to piggyback off of what Rachel was saying, like you don't know what you don't know. And also I would say having a little bit of imposter syndrome, like I'm in this group and all these moms seem to be doing it. They have all sorts of advice and everything. Their kids are great. And I'm looking at my kid and I'm like, am I doing all the things of the things? So I would say just a fear of failure and then having that imposter syndrome.
That
Tell me
is
a little bit more about the imposter syndrome again. What exactly that means to you, Jasmine?
So basically, I'm in this group, like I'm going to take the Missy's group, for instance, and I feel like all the moms know what they're doing. They have everything under, like to me, it just looks like they have everything under control, like their kids are blossoming. And I'm looking at my kid and she's going crazy, like she's eating dirt. And I'm like, what the heck is going on with this kid?
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Got it. Okay. Anybody?
Jasmine, I was real honest. I've never heard that term imposter syndrome, but we definitely, even beyond this call, we're going to talk about that a little bit. And I know Ms.Pam will talk about it tonight, but that's a broad conversation that I'm sure most of the moms
It's real.
feel like, yeah.
Real.
So
Yeah.
I applaud you for even saying that. That was amazing. Shane, you want to go?
So for me, excuse me, I'm trying to get my voice back. I've been sick. For me, I didn't even realize this was a concern of mine until I had my son. It's location. When we bought our house, I wasn't looking at school districts, right? But now we're in this school district and I'm looking at these ratings on the school that he would go to. And I'm like, I'm not sending my child there. Like, I'm just not. I don't want to. So now I'm going down this whole rabbit hole of community homeschooling. Like private school is just, we can't afford that. Like, let's just be honest. Like I cannot have a whole nother mortgage. Like I can't afford to do that. So that's where I'm at. It's just like, we pay our taxes, so we should be able to go to the public school, but I don't like the scores, and I'm a part of a group for that particular school, and the stories that I'm reading and the issues that these parents are having, like I'm already like in panic mode. Like, so I'm just like, no, we're not doing this. So just trying to figure out what options we're going to take for him is where I'm at.
Okay. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you. That was.
Anybody else? I know we have a few moms that are off camera. If you want to type your responses, if you don't want to come on camera, you can, and we'll read them aloud to Ms. Pam as we go through. I think for me, my biggest fear is these two are not anything, like they are like different. Lord knows they hit different. And I don't have the same amount of energy that I had when I had my older ones, because we were young and mobile. So I don't want them to get less from me because I'm older. So I think I overcompensate and give them, like, I'm over the top. They'll tell you I'm just always over the top, but I don't want them to miss out or get less than their older siblings had.
Okay, so the fear is what? that
The
you're
fear is not
overcompensating?
having that I'm not going to be enough, I guess, at this age for them.
Okay. So your fear is that you're lacking in what you may need to raise your children,
Yeah.
the way you feel like you raised your first set.
Yeah.
Okay.
First, second, or third set, Lord.
I didn't even go there. I was just like, I'll just go with first. Anyone else before we get this rolling, as they say?
Anybody else?
I
No?
see some chat things. I'm not looking at them, but I see.
Oh, no, those were when kind of what you were talking about earlier. They were just kind of making comments to each other. So
great,
no, you're
great,
good.
great.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, I have 5 things. I'm going to touch on them and go down them, and we'll let the conversation.
Yeah, 5. Uh-oh, did she, everybody freeze? What happened?
And your unpreparedness, I didn't get the name of the person who said the failure piece, but that they felt like their fear was failure.
That was me, Jasmine.
Thank you, Jasmine. And so, yes, because you spoke to that and the imposter syndrome, right? There we go. Okay, now I've got it. So the unpreparedness sounded a little bit like you were feeling like you were failing because you weren't prepared. So they kind of roll in together. And when you look at how that impacts education and what you do for your children, it actually, for me, is saying that you're opening windows for opportunity because you first acknowledge it, and you've already done that. So now that you've acknowledged that you feel like there's some kind of a fear or shortcoming, you've done things to try to alleviate that. And that goes back to what I was saying about educating yourself and getting information, because those are going to be the things that allow you to address those fears and gain confidence in what you're doing and feel more self-assured. The key is that what you're getting educationally and and information wise is factual. And that, I think, is a huge tripping point for many of us today, because when you wonder something, you start looking and then researching, but then I go, but is my research factual? Like, is this an accurate site? Like, is that reliable information? Am I, so it's always about questioning yourself. But I find that questioning yourself is how you grow. So in response to being unprepared, I actually think, Rachel, you're probably more prepared than I ever was. One, you have this wonderful support group. And I tell you, support groups are everything. And since the pandemic, I think more and more people realize how critical people at the table and other voices and other perspectives are to them finding the right answers and the right match for what they need. So even though you're saying, I don't know what book to buy, I don't know if this is the right, the right choice of a toy or an instructional tool, or, instinct is something that was given to us as mothers. And I think as parents, because many males are also helping to raise their families. That instinct is something you have to learn to tune into and to listen to. That extra voice that's saying, I don't know, listen to it, because it's usually pretty much on point. And sometimes we get caught up in the race of doing everything we got to do, that we don't calm ourselves down and listen to the voice. So what I would suggest is making sure you have time somewhere, it doesn't have to be but a minute or two, at some point in your day where you can isolate, breathe, and say, reflect. What stood out for me today? What is still on my mind I haven't dealt with? Because those are the things that are intuition. They're talking to you. They're guiding you along the way. Some people will label them. Missy and I had a big conversation about labels. Yeah, they'll label them. And they may want to label it as a God. They may want to label it as a spirit, or may label it as whatever. The labels are not what's important. What's important is that you calm and have a calm place to actually listen and reflect. I do this all the time. I do it in my relationships with my daughters now, who are moving closer to 40 every day. And when we reflect, moving closer to 40 every day. Okay. Anyway. But anyway, that
It came off mute real quick.
that wasn't the point. The point is that I reflect on what I do and what I say. And I often find out some things I need to look at again and maybe reassess or go back and do differently. But I try not to beat myself up because the journey of life is a learning process. Keep telling yourself that because there's always something around the corner, always. And I just try not to look at it as something to take me down. It's an opportunity for me to learn more and to try it again and to improve upon it the next time. So for what that is and how that sits with you, Rachel, I just say continue what you're doing, because what you're doing is looking and finding opportunities that are going to be the right ones for you and raising your child. And you're finding them. I bet you have a nice library of books. And I'm sure your child enjoys you reading.
Rachel is a Capricorn, and that's how we do.
So therefore you're finding the right books. And maybe you might wonder, am I reading in the right way? Am I teaching while I'm reading like I should? Should I be showing them colors every page? Should I be counting everything on every page? And then you look at your child and let your child direct. When they start touching that, then you talk about that and you ask them a question. And if they respond in nonverbal, that's what you want. And you move on. And when you turn the page and they push it back, okay, so we're not ready to go on. What do you want to know about this page? Let them be your guide, because everything that you do from that point is going to be a point of learning and getting where you want to take your child as far as providing their education and their opportunities for success. Okay.
Wow. Everything is perspective.
Yeah.
Everything with everything you just said, I took away from that. Everything is perspective and looking at it from Jasmine's point where you feel like you have imposter syndrome. And I think we see and know in part, right? Y'all know me, I'm a word person, I'm a scripture person. Mm-hmm. We know in part, right? So that part, and I said this to somebody earlier, what you don't see, your mind tends to fill in based on your perspective. And sometimes your perspective, when that's off, everything else is off because now you've already filled it in. So the fact that somebody does this, or, we see it on Facebook, I just pumped 8 ounces of milk, and you over here trying to figure out why you can only pump an ounce, but they didn't tell you they pumped that 8 ounces over the whole day. They didn't tell you what they had to go through to get to pumping 8 ounces. So you feel like a failure with your ounce because they got 8 ounces. And that's only because we know what people show us. So, and most people don't come and talk about, we didn't do this and we're a failure at this. So you only see the yay, but you don't see the tears when we're not on the call. So everything is about perspective. So give yourself some grace. Y'all know.
Absolutely on point with that. And that perspective is what you bring from your history. So something in your history has led you to be more of that person that feels, I'm not prepared, or I may be feeling. And that's all of us. That's why what Missy's saying is true, because you only hear the end of that. And when you hear anything on TV or anything, I always go, wonder what else went on there, because there's always another side. So yes, totally agree. The imposter syndrome. I'm kind of moving from failure, because failure kind of rolls into that whole unpreparedness, but we can come back to it. Imposter syndrome. Interesting, Jasmine. And I thank you for bringing that up, because I didn't know that's what you called that. I didn't know it had a name. It's kind of almost like pressure, right? Because I need to pretend to be like that so nobody thinks that I'm not where everybody else is, because then I'll look like I'm unprepared or a failure. Can't have any of that. They all kind of go together. I think that's just the age we live in. I'm discovering things historically that I never was really aware of until we had all the technology and the immediate feedback that we have. Some things feel overwhelming because it's like, oh my God, there's just so much of that going on, and why? Actually, it's always been going on. We just never heard about it because the technology didn't present a way for us to know about it other than write a letter and wait a week later to find out. Now we get it instantaneously and we get all of it. So you feel overwhelmed and pressured to be what you see everybody else looks like they are, which is the imposter, which is what you're talking about, Jasmine. I guarantee you, looking right around at all these gorgeous faces, what you see isn't everything. We all have many things in our lives that are not what we would call at their best. But just for myself, I try to stay focused on what's working and what's good. The negativity, I try to surround myself with positivity. And that's why this is an amazing opportunity to participate in these kinds of supports, because that's where the positivity is. And I strongly believe in that energy. So if you believe in that kind of positivity and energy, that to me is what can knock down your imposter syndrome, because you have to get to that place where you can say, whatever, I'm working this the best way I know how, and it's working okay for me.
And that's exactly, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, please.
But so like I'm a stay-at-home mom, and that wasn't something that I saw myself. I've always worked, I've always been into my studies and everything. So once I had my daughter, I decided to stay home. So now I'm in all these like stay-at-home mom groups, and I feel like they're so cute. Like they come up with like they cut the food in little different shapes, and you know, they come up with all these arts and crafts, and you know, all these things. And it's like, haven't even thought about doing any of that. But is that something that I'm supposed to be doing, or am I doing something wrong? Or, you know, like they're asking me questions, and I'm like, I'm just trying to get her like tired. You know what I mean? Like she's playing. I'm just trying to get her tired so she can take a nap. I hadn't thought about anything else. So.
And guess what? And that is okay. There is not a thing wrong with what you're doing and where your focus is. And I'm sure you got gifts and talents. I know you do. Everyone does. Everyone has gifts and talents. Some people don't recognize them as gifts and talents, but you do. And at some point, if you haven't already, you will be lending yours to that group. I guarantee that. It's just that it may not be looking like theirs. And I commend you as a stay-at-home mom. Yes, especially in today's, wow, that's awesome. I was a stay-at-home mom back in the 80s when, yeah, you stayed at home. Some people did, but I was a career woman. And I just decided to make that sacrifice and take a year and a half off. I wanted my children old enough to be able to speak to me so that when I put them in daycare, they could be able to tell me and communicate what went on. Because that was my fear. Talk about fears. That was my fear. My child can't tell me what happened. So that was my initiative to stay home that year and a half. At least by the time they got there, they were mobile and they could say enough words that, you know, I could pick up on whether it was a good day or a not so good day. So I commend you for that, because I grew a garden. I made and baked bread on my own. Oh yeah, I don't do that anymore. But that was a sacrifice I was willing to make because I felt like that was important to stay there. But not one that some women are like, I'm not staying home. That's not going to happen. Everybody has their own place. So good for you. And I feel like, Jasmine, you are doing what you need to do for your child. And sooner or later, they may be doing what you do. They may stop with the cutting of the hearts and the squares out of the sandwiches and be like, yeah, we need to get you to sleep.
Yes. And Jasmine, I will say, just thinking about what she said and knowing you personally, like you said, you were all into your studies, all about education, all about learning. And that's what we keep hearing from you about your daughter. It's like, I want to know that she's getting an education. I want to know that she's progressing. I want to know that she's learning. So in your mind, education is big. Like, and that's what this whole series has been about, is educating our children. And for you, for your little, you want her to be educated so that she can have the best possible start in life. And so you're doing all the things to make sure that she's moving along in education. So if you don't recognize it, we see it. If nothing else, you're not waiting until she gets to elementary school and say somebody, oh, she has a problem. No, you're looking back and you're going, okay, so I see these other children. I'm not sure where she should be. Let me ask the professionals because I want to give her a good foundation. So I commend you when some of us are just making it through the day someday, like we just, from the time they wake up, it's like, when is nap? And then when they get through nap, it's like, when is bed, right? All of that is a process. So I commend you for making sure what's important to you. We say get one thing. Cherie says it all the time. That one thing. You can't obsess about everything, but find that one thing that you, if you got obsessed, get that one thing. And yours seems to be education. And for her, that is going to be major when she gets big. So don't knock yourself about what our children are doing. Make sure you get that education because that's what's important to you.
Share that story with her when she gets older. She'll probably tell you, I could care less about the stars and the hearts shapes out of my sandwich, because she's going to be about education. So she's going to be like, that really wasn't that important. Oh, me. Location. Oh, wow. Yeah, the private, the homeschooling, and oh my. Yes, I feel your frustration. I'm not going to say to people out there that are listening, like that's an easy thing to change, because it's not. But if you are, in the process of trying to get pregnant, or, you are pregnant and you still have some choices with that kind of thing, it's kind of like buying a home at different stages in your life. Like when you had your, well, I guess you bought your location before you had your baby, but that's not uncommon, and some people will buy what they need for then, and then they get pregnant, and then their need changes. And eventually they may move, but right now might not be the right time for that. And some people never move. They make other adjustments to ensure that they're getting what they want for their child and their education. So you do have options that don't mean you have to always pick up and move, or I got to start another job so I can afford to do all of this. And like you said, private education. No, some people, that's not where you're going. So what I would say is look for other ways to involve yourself in your child's education as you make decisions about how you want them to start out, because there are lots of options. If you aren't satisfied with the school system and you have good reason not to be, listen to that. That's a flag. Listen to it. Now, the question is, do you want to start them out with homeschooling? Or do you want to place them in public education, but provide some other supplemental for them for other things that are concerns? The biggest question there is, what are your concerns? Are they academic curriculum concerns? Are they the certifications and credentials of the people teaching your child, or are they just the way the school system's being run, period? Those are different questions. And for each of those, you'll find different ways that you can supplement and work around it. The other thing I will say is homeschooling sometimes gets a really bad rap, because a lot of people infuse the political aspect of the homeschool stuff that's out here and charters and all, and it gets a bad rap. Homeschooling can be a great thing. There are homeschool groups, just like this group. So through homeschooling, a young child can get a really nice, rich education in a smaller community. So again, that's about looking and seeing what's available, what's out there, or finding a small group of mothers who are willing to start out with their preschoolers with something like that for a few years. So that's not something that I think that a person can nowadays just shut the door on and say, I'm not homeschooling my kid because I can't teach anything. But when you do it with a group, I think it's hard to do individually, but with a group support and the right type of material support. I don't know how Maryland runs theirs, but it can be a very beneficial thing. In Virginia, they actually have part of the way they do their education is you have to sign up, or you used to. I'm going to say, I don't know if this is true now, but 10 years ago it was. You had to sign in for being a homeschooled family. And then there were a few materials, I'll call them materials, that you had to incorporate in what you were teaching. And there was a way that they got you to sign off on that. I don't know if it was a test you took or whatever, but there was a way that the state was monitoring their homeschoolers, but the homeschoolers still had their own thing. And they had different programs they could choose from that were sanctioned by the state and supportive of the state curriculum. So you weren't just out there looking for stuff. There was stuff available for you to pick and choose from. And then there were groups. And those groups were important because of the socialization aspect of education. So your kids got to do those things and take field trips and do all of that too. So I'm just going to say, don't fret, because there are options. Now, I feel like I want to tell you more, but I'm going to have to hear more about that. Don't beat yourself up. It's a learning experience. You may find in 5 or 6 years, or when they get middle school age, you and your spouse or partner may say, hey, you know what? We need to move, because that's a different education. When you leave elementary and move into middle school, that's where the dominoes begin to fall in alignment. And if you're not in the right domino pile, that can impact your child's future forever and ever. So elementary, preschool, I think, are flexible. But when you hit middle school, if you're not in the right district with what you need for your children, that can really make or break their pathways.
And I will say, because we're looking into the homeschooling, there is, in order for them to be certified from one grade to the next, that's kind of how you know if they're going to graduate, is they do have to take an exam. And based on the exam scores, they will say whether or not they stay in that grade. It's still like the standardized test that they would take if they were in school. The good thing about COVID is Maryland now offers a hybrid option. So they have the online and they have the, kind of half day, half whatever, where they're actually in school and don't. So you have several options, and they also have communities. I met a lady today when we were at the library, and her son is homeschooled. This is his first year in his kindergarten. She's doing community homeschool. So on 2 days a week, her husband takes him to another family's house, and that family teaches whatever it is. And then one day they're at her house. And so they're kind of incorporating it together by the parent's skill set to teach the child. So you have those options as well.
Look at how powerful that is, because different families have different strengths. And it allows them to zero in and tap into those strengths to teach their children. So if your husband's an engineer, you got the math background things going on. There may be he may be that person, or one of the older children in that family, whatever. You've got access to things, and sometimes that can be your homeschooling can be, in my opinion, a better rounded education. And I'm going to say that simply because public education has really gotten away from educating. We are now meeting standards that individuals who are often far removed from education are setting for what needs to be taught and learned. And education is a process. It's a Socratic process. It's a process of questioning, of asking questions and answering and exploring and researching. That's what education is about. And we've gotten so far away from that I think as Americans, we're not doing our children justice and our futures justice, but that's just my personal opinion.
So as I stated in the beginning, this is definitely going to be roll over into a Tuesday conversation because we're getting late in the hour. But I did want to, Jasmine, I had the opportunity before the call to talk to Ms. Pam kind of about the situation that you encountered this week. And in your mom instincts, which I'm glad she talked about, like follow your instincts because they are real. She had the same reaction that we all had. And as an educator in one of the counties in Maryland, she again felt like some of that was unnecessary information. And because of time's sake, we won't go into the whole thing, but we agreed that the next step would be to find out who is actually running that program in your county and to have a conversation with them. Because what you said to me that stood out the strongest was their response was, oh yeah, a whole lot of people feel like this. Well, if a lot of people are feeling like this, then something definitely needs to change, because some people are going to break and run based on, now I'm in protective mode, right? Like I don't trust this system. And so now that becomes a barrier to your child's education, because you're not even going to enroll this child if you feel like, it's not going to be giving the education that you want and you're under a microscope. So I shared with her after our meeting, they were telling us kind of who gets priority in some of these programs, these early childhood state-run programs. And the first one was those children with physical and emotional disabilities that are going to need like extra help in the process. And the second one was ESL. And I had to stop right there, because ESL, or speaking a different language, should not put me in a special needs program. There should be somebody that is going to understand my language and be able to help me understand your language, because a lot of these kids are coming in sometimes in middle school and now you're going to put me in a situation where I'm in a special needs program because I don't speak your language. That to me is a barrier for a parent as well, because that's not a special need. That is, I need to learn your language because I'm in a new environment, whether it's English, Spanish, French, whatever it is, it's not like that shouldn't be a thing. So I know that that's got to be some sort of a barrier for parents that don't want to enroll their children because they don't feel like they'll be understood. They don't feel like they'll be heard. They feel like they're going to be set aside or put on a back burner or whatever. Not to mention your children with things like dyslexia and high functioning autism and all of these things. We got to stop treating these children like that's a special need. It's not.
Yes.
A lot of this can be dealt with in the classroom. Now, the language thing, yes, we may need a separate classroom so those children can stay on track while they're learning English at the same time. But a child that's high functioning autism and can sit down in the classroom, they just process things a little bit different. Why do they have to be sent to a whole separate classroom when they can sit and maybe you just realize as a teacher, all 30 of these kids, which is ridiculous in a classroom, but all 30 of these kids have their own way of learning. Just because this child has been labeled with whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean that they need to be pulled out of the classroom to learn. So that to me is also a strong barrier in education, because we have to feel safe. And I hear you when you say, I'm not sending my kids there, because sometimes it's a safety concern. Forget the education, forget if I feel like I got to send you to school with a helmet and a vest on, if I feel like I got to send you to school with metal detectors, if I feel like I got to send you to school and worry about the big bully over here, then I can't even send you to school because you're not going to learn. You in fear, I'm in fear. Those are also barriers to education. So there are a lot of barriers to education. Last week we talked about the unintentional education of our children. Like all of these different things can be barriers to education, and it's huge, right? It's huge. I never would have thought, because I was always that one, you got to be in school from 8:30 to 3:30 because mother needs a break, right? But I gotta weigh my needing a break in your safety. I used to have to worry about just your education, but now I got to worry about your safety first, because you have to be safe to learn. And so now I'm worried about your safety, and then I'm worried about the education that you're receiving. And for me, I just want you home with me. Like, I get the socialization, take gymnastics, we can go to swimming, let's go to the library, let's go to play dates. But I need you home with me so that I can keep you safe. And a lot of people don't have that education. Like she said, location, funding, private school is not an option for some families. It's a lot. It's a lot. So, Ms. Pam, I want to make sure you have the final, because I've enjoyed this conversation myself.
I feel like we've just kind of scratched the surface. There's just so much more to talk about. But you said two things that I want to go back and close with. One of them, you were just talking about the way children learn. They learn differently, so you don't always have to put them in a separate classroom for that. And there was a time when they called it learning styles. I had a lot of training in that, and to this day, with adults, we learn differently. Some of us learn by listening. Some of us have to write it down. Some of us have to act it out, and then we get it. Whatever that need is, we learn differently, and we have to respect that. And stop feeling like you got to pull everything out and put it in a separate room. That's how we're people learn differently. And that's so powerful, so important. And the whole thing about your fears and where those fears are, as Dr. Missy said, they're everywhere. And we could pull anything out. And part of what we're talking about is because we have a fear. That safety piece, school was the safe place. It was an extension of your home. And over the last 20 years, that has changed so dramatically. It is one of my concerns as a retired educator and administrator is, what are we doing with our public education when our children used to feel safe to go home, to go to school and to learn and feel like we could trust and there was a relationship there. These things have been eroding. And the way we're saving it is to bring our kids back home and say, we'll just stay home and we'll do this all at home. And that's an option, but that's not reality. So yes, we need to continue to work together. I thank you all for this opportunity to even just brush the canvas just a little bit this evening. This is my passion. This is my heart. I told my daughter, I said, yeah, you look for your purpose. I know I have a purpose in retirement. Hadn't quite found it. I'll just say this in closing. Spiritually, I was made aware that at some point before October was over, I was going to have an opportunity to educate or to teach or to work in that field again. And I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. I am aware today that you all were my vehicle for that. And you and this opportunity tonight, has provided me with a purpose. And I'm very full, and I thank you. I hope I have the opportunity to interact more with you and get into deeper, more personable conversation than just 45 to 55 minutes. But thank you. May you all continue on your journeys of success where you are, and continue to take time to pat yourself on the back and say, you know what? I'm a damn good mama, because you are.
Love it.
Much love for you.
I love it. I'm just going to tell y'all, I talked to Ms. Pam about my vision for the homeschool, the little brick building with the 3 to 4 year old program, so that we could get these babies ready for school. So I think we just hijacked Kendra's mom. We sorry, but It's okay. It's all right. Don't shake your head. You're not gonna keep her over there to your little person by yourself. That's selfish. That's selfish. Don't do it. So we are, yes, again, full. I'm glad we have the opportunity because you are retired to have you on a Tuesday when more of our moms can come in and be in the room. We have a little more time to break down some of these things, and you can hear like the full story from Jasmine and that kind of thing. And we have babies that are home all day, and moms could use that guidance and preparation. And we have some that have had to go back to daycare, and they wonder what are they really learning in daycare, because like Tisha said last week, just because they bring home some artwork don't mean they really learning anything. You can do artwork anywhere. So this was very, very helpful. I am again very full. Thank you, Kendra, for the recommendation. I love it. And we're going to keep Ms. Pam around and actually have her on a Tuesday call. But as always, thank you all for watching that joined us tonight. Remember to always like and share any of the videos that you feel like kind of have blessed you or have made you think. And again, we welcome anyone into the space. If you are a new mommy and you have had a little that is under 2 and you need help, my contact information will be at the end. You can reach out and we will tell you, when you have access to the group. And just you need resources. If nothing else, you need resources and somebody to point you in the right direction. You're not going to find your picture in a textbook because your child did not get that book. They didn't read that book. They don't know that book. You're the only one reading that book. So you read your book because they give you some little dot points and things, but this is real life and you need somebody to walk that journey with you. So we appreciate Ms. Pam for being on this road.
Thank you, Dr. Missy. And I call you Dr. Missy because you have a PhD of life. All I can say in the short time I've met you, you have a PhD of life. And I say that with all sincerity. So that's where that comes from, in case you all might be going.
Thank you. Because you the second person, because Dr. Wortham kept saying that to me the other day. I was like,
I recognize. And that's where that's coming from me. So anyway.
So we're going to say our goodbyes, and Ms. Pam is going to stay around to say her goodbyes after the program. So we're going to ask everybody, as always, to go camera off and mute as we say goodbye to our audience, and we will be back in just a moment.
All right. Thank you.
Rachel, you have to give me back host, mama, because remember my internet was acting up. Rachel. There we go.
I just did. Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.